Both sides are violent.
Mr. Attorney General, thank you so much for being on. What a wild time that we are seeing right now in America. I don't like how much political violence there is, especially on the street. It seems to predominantly be coming from the left, almost exclusively from the left. And I think that's because they're getting signals from their leaders that violence is permissible. And that, I believe, is what we're seeing here in the state of Virginia. Your reaction to these text messages, and more importantly, Mr. Attorney General, why has no Democrat disavowed this monster?
Well, I mean, listen, when you're the Attorney General of Virginia, you're the top prosecutor of the state. Your job is to stop violence. I can't imagine somebody running for this office that has advocated for violence, not just against a political opponent, but advocated violence against small children. Yeah. That's probably what is the most shocking. If you look at the text exchange he had with a colleague, about somebody he had served with, worked with, about children that he had met. The speaker would bring his children to the assembly. And when he was called out on, listen, you're advocating for hoping that the children of Jennifer Gilbert would die. He said, yes. He said, actually, pain is the only way change occurs. Think about politics aside. This is not a right versus left issue. In many ways, this is now a right versus wrong issue. I've said this is now a referendum in Virginia on what kind of Commonwealth, what kind of Virginia are we going to be that our leaders are failing the most basic test of decency. And I think obviously the Charlie Kirk assassination shocked all of us. But the idea and the point that I made when Charlie Kirk, he was not obviously murdered because of the Second Amendment. He was murdered because of the First Amendment. He had no power other than the power of ideas. He had no power. He wasn't a congressman, a governor, or mayor. He never signed laws into effect or drafted laws. He just had ideas. And the idea that there are people that view on the far, far left that ideas can be silenced is shocking. But even more shocking, you have somebody literally running to be the top law enforcement officer of the state that has advocated for violence against children. I never thought I would live in Virginia. This is even a debate. And, other Democrats have said, well, these are reprehensible. He should be held accountable. But they never say what accountability looks like. Think about that. And listen, Benny, I have a sign outside of my office in Richmond. I see every day when I go in the office. It's a quote from Thomas Jefferson. And it is this: I have never found a difference of opinion in politics, in philosophy, or religion as cause to withdraw from a friend. It's just a reminder for me that at the end of the day, we're all made in the image of our creator. We are Americans. I can't imagine that kind of mindset that I bring to my job as Attorney General, which I'm the people's protector. I'm protecting everyone, no matter what your background, Republican, Democrat, or Independent, to have the mindset that it's okay to inflict pain on a man's family to advance a political agenda. To me, that just beyond shocks the conscience. I think it's a moment of choosing, as I've noted in Virginia.
Yeah, Mr. Attorney General, I think that we've recognized quite the pattern here, which is that if you don't believe in God, if you don't believe that people were created and that they have the divine mark of a creator and that they are inherently, inalienably valuable and have rights, then you're going to be willing to slaughter them for power. And you've seen this in every Bolshevik revolution and every Marxist revolution, communist revolution throughout the world in the last 100 years. This is obviously the number one body count for any political ideology is godless communism that says that people are just numbers on a ledger and you just get rid of them for power. Yeah. And I believe that's actually what we're seeing here. It seems like godliness versus godlessness, where you can really justify just the murder of human beings if they're inconvenient to you or your political ideology.
Well, if you know my background, the Miyares family fled communist Cuba. And I remember asking my mother, how did this happen? I love to point out the year Fidel Castro took power in Cuba, Cuba had the same GDP as Greece. The year he died, it had the same GDP as Sudan. Socialism never works. But I said, how did Cuba descend into this? And my mother told me this. She said, everyone in society, once the communists took over, both in academia, with their state-controlled media, with Castro and his cronies, everyone in society was labeled one of two categories: oppressor or oppressed. My mother said this to me. She said, you can always justify evil if you claim you're doing it against the oppressor on behalf of the so-called oppressed. And that is a mindset, obviously, you've noted moments of history dating back to the Jacobins. And you are right. Communism has the largest body count in human history. But listen, I want to be clear. Whenever I've met with a victim of a violent crime, I've never asked them their political persuasion. And I started off as a prosecutor. Uh, Crime knows no political boundaries. And I will tell you this, Benny, when you've met with crime victims, when you've met with a mom that has lost a child, there's no cry like the cry of a mother that's lost a child. I can't imagine then wishing that on small children yourself and then asking people to hire you to be the top prosecutor. It tells me that he's not ready for the job. It's telling me he's never met with victims. He's never been to a crime scene. He's never actually experienced the requirements of what's required in this job. And so we have to realize the biggest evil we can ever have in a society is this notion that ideas matter more than people. And like you, I'm a person of faith. One of my articles of my faith is a Latin term, imago Dei. It simply means just image of God. It means everybody I ever meet, no matter who they are or where they are in life, they just have immediate, amazing value because they're made in the image of their creator. Yes. The idea that you would wish a violent death on young children to prove a political point shows that you're just morally unfit for the office, in my opinion.
Yes. So can you explain a little bit why you are seeing so much of a protection mechanism around Jay Jones that is being reinforced? Democrat Party is doubling down on this. Democrat voters in Virginia are going to vote for this guy if he makes it to the election. And what are they signaling to their Republican neighbors? Do you live is Virginia a failed state? Is it a failed society where the millions of Democrats that are registered in Virginia will willingly vote for the murder of their neighbors and their children? They'll put that man as the top law enforcement official who wishes to genocide them. And these are like real questions, because he said he wants to do this, and you should believe people when they say things like this, especially when the left is putting bullets into the heads of Donald Trump and Charlie Kirk. They shot them both in the head. And so you got to believe these people. And what does it say about Virginia when presumably millions of Democrats will go out and vote for the murder of their Republican neighbors' children? Dark.
Well, listen, first of all, and I know I'm biased, I'm a Virginian. This is the most remarkable state, not just because of our history or ties to our founders. This is a remarkable place with remarkable people. The number of veterans we hear outpace every other state. We are good and decent people. Yes. I'm fully confident the Virginians are going to reject this type of political discourse. And you've actually brought up a point where nobody's held them accountable yet. No, the Democrats continue. I mean, think about Abigail Spanberger. If someone who was applying to be in Abigail Spanberger's cabinet, and it turned out, let's just say the Secretary of Public Safety in Virginia, somebody was applying, it turned out they had advocated for violence against the children of a political opponent. Would she still hire them? No. But she's still saying, you know what, I'm still willing to campaign with him. I'm not asking him to drop out of the race. I'm perfectly happy for him to be the top prosecutor in the state. That is an amazing lack of judgment, in my opinion, that someone would still have that mindset, that power is so important that it trumps decency. That is a shocking thing to see by Abigail and some other people right now in Virginia. But I know this, Virginians are good and decent people. They're going to reject this type of politics because as I said, this is no longer necessarily a campaign, at least in Virginia, between right and left. It's between right versus wrong. It's a basic test of moral decency. Jay Jones has failed it. And I'm confident that Virginians are going to reject this type of politics this fall.
Yeah. I mean, how do you run a state when there are 2 million registered Republicans in Virginia? How can you run a state when the top law enforcement official is okay with the murder of them and their children? You can't. It's not a functional society. It's a collapsed society. It's a sectarian violence, civil war society. And so like I pray that doesn't happen. I do find it remarkable, though, that more Democrats haven't disavowed this. Every Democrat put their little hat on, including Barack Obama all the way on down, and ran to cover for Jimmy Kimmel, and lost their minds when Jimmy Kimmel, got put in timeout for making a nasty joke about Charlie Kirk and lying about his murder. They defended him. Yet none of those Democrats, I don't see any tweets from Barack Obama about Jay Jones and how evil it is to call for the murder of Republicans. What's going on there, Mr. Attorney General?
Well, I don't know. I mean, again, that goes back to ideas. Once ideas matter more than people, then that puts you in a very, very dark place where you could justify anything. And when power matters more than people. And so I do view this as a test of basic decency. Jay Jones has clearly failed that test. That's where we are. But listen, I have great faith in Virginians. I have great faith they're going to see through this. I would like to see more leadership from other Democrats nationally, because what they should be doing is saying, this is politics aside, put politics aside. This is a failure of basic decency. This is not just a one-off. This is somebody who was had too much to drink. Just so you know the background of this text started because he was angry that Republicans had attended a funeral and said nice things about a Democratic member of the legislature, Joe Johnston, who had passed away. And in his words, I would piss on the grave of my opponents. That's how this whole exchange with a colleague started. He was upset that Republicans said something nice about a Democrat. Think about that mindset. Think about what place you have to be. And then when he was called out, when he, said he wanted to put 2 bullets in Todd Gilbert's head, when he was called out, that is when he doubled down and said, yes, I want to see his children die in his mother's arms. That is a place I don't want to see anybody elevated to be elected a local councilman, much less be the top law enforcement leader in the state of Virginia. Not acceptable behavior, disqualifying.
It's totally sick. I want to give you just the last word here, Mr. Attorney General, about morality. You keep using sort of the John Adams term about America, a good and decent and moral people. And this Constitution and our founding documents are written for none other. And they actually won't work if you don't have those people in America. And maybe give an opportunity to talk to us about how you would never find text like this in your phone because you're a Christian and because you believe in Christ and you believe in the Bible and you actually believe in these morals. Maybe you could make a moral separation, right, for permissibility of murder versus non-permissibility.
Well, listen, I mean, there's no justification for taking someone's life. My uncle was arrested at Bay of Pigs evasion and went through a mock execution under Castro's regime because of ideas, because he had handed out anti-Castro leaflets. You can never justify violence to try to silence an opponent. But listen, a wise Marine once told me that if you go to Arlington National Cemetery and you walk among those crosses and those stars of David's, you actually don't see an R or a D next to anyone's name. And never forget, someone who thinks differently than you politically is given the last full measure of devotion to this remarkable country. That has always struck with me. In other words, we have big debates about big ideas. Scalia said, I may disagree vehemently on ideas. I may attack ideas. I'm not going to attack people. And I don't view somebody who thinks differently than me politically as my enemy. They may be sincerely wrong. And given the fact that I've seen how dangerous some of these ideas can be, but I can never imagine advocating for violence against someone that I disagree with politically, much less their young children that I have met. That's just shocking to me. And candidly, it has been a lot of processing for me this weekend, where I thought I knew Jay Jones. I served with him briefly in the General Assembly, wasn't ever friends with him in that sense, knew who he was, would see him at events and would see him in the chambers. You think you know somebody, clearly I didn't.
So in conclusion here, and let's please put up the Attorney General's social media to make sure that everybody fights with the people who are fighting for us. You want him to drop out? You think he should drop out? Do you think there should be any investigation here? I mean, do you think there should be further action potentially to see if he meant this? Like what are you calling for to happen with Jay Jones?
Listen, I think he's disqualified himself. I think he has to make that decision whether he wants to continue to stay in this race. I think Virginians are going to find him disqualifying and vote against him. But if people want to follow me, they can follow me on Twitter, Jason Miyares VA. They can also just Google or put in jasonforvirginia.com, Jason Miyares. Like my last name's Cuban, so it's a little different. The I is pronounced like an E. But if you tune in jasonforvirginia.com, you can go and you can also support me. Because what I would say as well is we want to make sure that we win this race, that we are sending a message across the nation. No more. No more silencing voices, no more advocating for violence. There will be a price to pay when you're openly saying that you want to murder small children, murder a fellow political opponent. That type of language needs to end.
Goodness, yes. Yes, thank you. We're done losing friends, and we're done losing icons and thought leaders in our movement due to left-wing violence. And when somebody shows you who they are, believe them. And you should believe Jason Miyares. Here is his social media handles and also his campaign webpage. Please, everyone, go and fight with Jason and ensure that we have a godly and good and moral Virginia and is preserved by strong moral men like this. Thank you very much, Mr. Attorney General. Godspeed.
Thank you.